I buy, rehab, rented, refinance, repeat. And I was writing a blog post for BiggerPockets now like 7 years ago. And I was like, how can we make that whole process, which was really cool, and a lot of people do it, how can we put a name to it? So I was like, let's call it BRRRR investing. And when I told that story, I said I basically did a BRRRR, and that's where the term BRRRR came from.
Yeah.
And I discovered the power of the BRRRR strategy. So anyway, 2 lessons from that first deal that then I just did over and over and over, both those things over the next decade.
Nice. I love it, man. So let's talk about the strategy real quick. And obviously it's a very popular strategy. A lot of people know about it. You know, I am guilty of making a couple of videos on YouTube about it as well. But you know, as I share with many of my students, and I'm sure you would agree with as well, you know, like any strategy, there's pros and cons. We have to be careful. We have to be educated, you know, which is why your BiggerPockets platform is very important, because it educates the masses, you know, on what they don't know about investing in real estate beyond just HGTV, right? I mean, you got the ladies like, hey, I'm a teacher, and the husband's like, yeah, I'm a contractor. Our budget is $4 million.
Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous.
Right. It is ridiculous. So in your opinion, as the founder and the inventor of the BRRRR strategy, you know, we know a lot of the benefits, but what would you say are like 3 flaws in the BRRRR strategy?
Yeah, good question. So by the way, so BRRRR, just so everyone knows that I'm not going to take all credit for this. Has been done for thousands of years, probably. I'm sure similar, right? I'm a marketing guy, so I like to put names to stuff, and then everyone thinks it's mine. But so here's a couple of things. Number one, the BRRRR strategy requires you to do a rehab, right? Obviously, buy rehab. Rehabs are incredibly difficult to do, especially if you're new to real estate. So what happens is people buy a property and they say, okay, I'm going to buy it for $100,000. I'm then going to fix it up and put $50,000 of work into it. And then it's going to be worth $200,000. That would be a good BRRRR. Buy for 100, put 50 into it. It's worth 200. Then you could refinance it for 150 and pull your money out. The problem is you buy it for 100, you put 50,000 into it, and you're only halfway done because you misjudged your rehab. And then you put another 50 grand in. So now you have $200,000 into a property that's only worth $200,000. When you go to refinance it, you can't refinance it for 100%. Banks only give you a refinance for 75 or 70 or 65, 80, whatever, depends on the bank, but not 100%. Yeah. So now you're stuck and you got all this extra money involved in it. And if you borrowed all that money, you might be in trouble. So if you don't have the cash reserves to handle an overage, or you're not experienced enough to handle that, that's a major drawback. Is there's just the difficulty of rehabbing properties in any regard, but BRRRR makes it even worse. Secondly, I'd say if you can't get the refinance, it's tough. I mean, like, you got to know going in that you're going to be able to refinance it. Because if you're using what I call short-term money, which means a hard money lender, or you're borrowing private money from somebody, or you're using like a giant credit card or line of credit to buy it, like, if you can't refinance, that property is not going to cash flow typically. You're just paying a super high interest rate on a very short-term loan. And so now you're in trouble. What are you going to do if you can't refinance it? So before doing a BRRRR, you have to know you can get into refinance. Otherwise, you're stuck like I was, and I couldn't get the loan. So I then had to find a creative strategy, add in a partner to be able to do it. Now, so I guess those are two downsides of the BRRRR strategy. I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna leave it with 2. There's probably more than that, but those are the 2 major drawbacks, and they're not like impossible. It's not impossible to get over. You can learn how to do better rehabs. You can learn how to bring on partners, or to get pre-approved ahead of time, or to know, like, right now, I know that my credit is so good, and that my income is so good, and that my experience is so good, I could get a loan any day of the week. I would not be afraid of doing a BRRRR right now at all.
Yeah.
But if I'm brand new and I got no credit, no income, I got to figure out another strategy, or find a way to make that work with a partner or something else.
And I agree with you. That's huge, because, you know, with banks, whenever they have even stuff like what's going on right now with like the liquidity crisis, you know, unless you are, you know, unless you're having a phenomenal income and you're very bankable, the banks just don't want to take that risk, you know. And it's with any strategy as well. You know, I mean, even the strategy that I preach, it's something that my brother and I came up with. It's called the FORCE strategy. So it's very Star Wars. It's very Star Wars related.
Nice.
So it's F, you know, you find it, owner finance it, raise the capital, cash flow, and you expand. But even that strategy has flaws, where if the individual is not educated, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the hustle or the money, like you said, it's very difficult to make it work. And a lot of things can draw back. So no, I appreciate you sharing that. Absolutely. You know, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, you know, like, I think you said it right. Like, this, it's all about the education, and not like, if you're trying to flip a house based on watching a YouTube video on flipping houses, or doing the BRRRR strategy based on watching what I just said in the last 5 minutes, like, yeah, you're going to have problems. Like you got to go, I mean, read a dozen books on this stuff, go listen to 100 podcasts on it. Like dive into the forums on BiggerPockets or wherever, like learn this stuff, learn the ins and outs, maybe consider partnering with somebody until you feel comfortable to do it yourself. No matter what strategy, flipping, rentals, BRRRR, wholesaling, doesn't matter. It's all the same. It's like, trying to build a lifestyle off of like a, like a slogan from a bottle, a Snapple bottle, right? Like you can't like build your life off of the short, pithy little like YouTube clips, which is where people get in trouble.
Right. I will just do it, Exactly.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's kind of how I started out as well, with partners and things like that. And I definitely didn't have the money to start off like you did. Or I'm sorry, just like you, we both didn't have any money when we started off. So it's definitely a good way to leverage. And that's the beauty about real estate, right? We're able to leverage, and you're not able to have that in other investment vehicles like stocks or bonds or anything like that. So you're up to 500 units now. You're obviously, a very well-known individual in the real estate investing space. I want to ask you this question because I think a lot of viewers listening to this podcast, or, maybe they're watching a clip of this podcast on YouTube. But what are the things that you wish a lot of aspiring real estate investors would know? What are some questions that you wish they would ask that be very beneficial for them in their journey?
Yeah. I think deal analysis is so underrated. That's why I preach it constantly. Like you have to know how to correctly analyze a deal. If not, you are going to run. Like it's like the best way to ensure you're going to have a good deal. And then by having a good deal, you can hire good property managers. And basically deal analysis is like the hub of everything. Everything becomes easier once you know how to do that. So I wish more new investors would spend the time and ask the questions needed to correctly analyze deals. Because if you go and analyze 100 properties and ask questions every time you run into a problem, at the end of that, you're going to be so rock solid, ready to invest. So that's like the first tip I give new investors. And I wish more people focused on that. The second thing I'd say is there's this habit that even I get myself into, and we all do. It's to work really hard on something in real estate, like to acquire a property, and then stop working to acquire properties and go and work on that property. And then to stop working on the property and then try to sell the property, and then sell the property or whatever, refinance it, rent it out, and then go back to the start. Now you got to start all over again. What I encourage people to do is think in terms of pipeline or funnel. And so how can you consistently deliver leads on a consistent basis that comes in? A good example of that would be if you were sending 1,000 direct mail letters every single month, that's a pipeline. Leads would just continually drip in. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. So I like thinking in terms of that. Those two things I think are pretty vital.
And I love that because, you go from just doing deals and now you're focusing on creating a business.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the things as well, that a lot of people miss. They focus on just doing the deals. And for me, it's just like, bro, you got to build a system, build a system, build a business, create something where it's going to work for you and not the other way around.
Yeah. One of my biggest regrets, and it's hard to say regret, cause everything I've done got me to where I am today kind of thing. But it's I wish I would have read real estate books less and business books more. There's nothing wrong with real estate books. I think you should read a lot of them, and I think you should continually refresh in what you know. But I got stuck in reading the same ones over, getting the same lessons over and over and over, when I should have been reading things if you look back by my shelf now, you can't read any of them, but they're all business books. Deep Work by Cal Newport, Never Split the Difference, Chris Voss, Discipline Equals Freedom, Jocko Willink, Atomic Habits, James Clear, High Performance Habits, Brendon Burchard, Total Money Makeover, Dave Ramsey. All this stuff. I wish I would have read business books that would have helped me become a better business owner. Because at the end of the day, real estate, if you want to, there's real estate hobby and then there's real estate business. Real estate business is, I think, a whole lot more fun than real estate hobby. Real estate hobby is I'm under a house in my overalls, fixing a pipe, and then they use the bathroom upstairs and it pours all over me. True story. It's happened. Not quite all over me. I scampered away and it.
I was going to say, who did it happen to,
Yeah, no, it's happened. At one time, I had some tenants fill a toilet because it stopped working and they just kept using it, and they filled it to the brim. And in order to get it out, I had to unbolt it from the floor and dump it over in the bathtub, an entire disgusting toilet. And they had all been sick for a week with the flu. And so this was the worst experience of my life. That's real estate as a hobby. That's because I was too busy working on I'm not going to pay a plumber $40. I'm going to do this myself. Versus thinking, how do I build a business so that I have people and systems and processes in place to handle all of that so I can go to Europe for a year. I wish I would have been thinking business, not hobby. And that's a big difference. In the beginning, you have to do hobby stuff sometimes, but just try to get out of it by reading business books to get better at that aspect.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, as soon as I saw that in the background with the yellow and the red, I knew that. I was like, oh, that split the difference.
Yep.
I see it right there. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, other books I read were really, really informative and helpful to me. It was like the E-Myth, Michael Gerber. So yeah. And then also Think and Grow Rich. I'm sure you've already read, you know, and even Pitch Anything by Orrin Klopp. That's one I really enjoyed.
Awesome.
Yep. Flip the Script. You know, I mean, Sam's looking at our library right now and just looking at all the stuff we have, but that's really cool. So I want to do this, right? Because I know you're about to go into book mode. And I want to spend some time kind of just promoting that book. And, you know, obviously you've authored a couple real estate books already. But what are you going to share in this new book that you're writing?
Sure. Yeah. So the new book is tentatively just called The Book on Multifamily Real Estate Investing. It'll probably change, but since I wrote the book on rental property investing, I thought it'd be fun to keep the book on no and low money down.
Yeah.
It might be fun to keep that thing. We'll see. I'm actually doing something kind of interesting. I don't think I've actually talked publicly about this necessarily, but I'll say it. We're actually writing 2 books. And I say I'm writing 2 books at one time with Brian Murray. So Brian Murray wrote a book called Crushing It in Commercial Real Estate and Apartments back a few years ago. He's a big multifamily syndicator, investor, and he's also my business partner, one of my business partners on Open Door Capital, which is my mobile home park investing business. So Brian is just a wicked smart genius. And so together he was going to write a book on multifamily and I was going to write one on multifamily. And we're like, well, why don't we just make this together? So what we're going to do is we're going to each write a book. Mine's going to be on small multifamily, duplex, triplex, fourplex, eightplex, maybe 10, 12, not so much broken down by unit, but by approach. So there's a different approach. I mean, it's kind of like you would never approach a 100-unit apartment in the same way you approach a duplex.
Yeah.
Now you could, I suppose, but nobody goes and syndicates or does that, right? So there's 2 different approaches. And obviously duplex, triplex, fourplex is on one side, 100 units on the other, and somewhere in the middle, people switch. For me, I bought a 24 unit using the same approach as I'd buy a duplex. It was all very hands-on. I was over there. I was taking phone calls. I was approached. The other one's the business side. So anyway, we're doing a 2-volume set on multifamily. One on mine's going to be on smaller multi. He's writing more of the second book. I'm writing more of the first book, but we're kind of doing it together. So anyway, that's the book. It'll be another year probably before it's actually published and out, but it'll be a very lengthy 2-book series.
Yeah. And where can people, go and stay tuned on what's going on with the writing and things going on? And I'm sure there's a waiting list. I don't know if there is one a year out, but where can people go?
I haven't started much yet, but my Instagram is where I'll post everything. I'm a big believer in pre-selling anything. But what I mean by that is building buzz around things. So even as of today, every day I post how many words I wrote on my Instagram story. Because even now I want people a year from now going, oh yeah, that was that book he wrote a year ago. I remember him talking about that. I'm going to go buy that. So for the next year, you won't be able to miss it on my Instagram. And then when I launch the book, you won't miss it. So if you follow me on Instagram,
and what is your Instagram? Because I follow you right now currently. And so what is your Instagram handle for people listening?
Beard with a Y. So think Beard with a Y. Beardy Brandon.
Nice. Very appropriate. Very appropriate.
Yeah. If I ever shave, I'm gonna have to change it to Shaven Brandon, but that doesn't flow as well.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and wrap the podcast up. But before we do that, I want to give you an opportunity. I know we touched on this a little bit here and there, but with the first deal experience, what is the advice that you would give to the aspiring real estate investor looking to do their first deal specifically? Hey guys, I'm glad you enjoyed that segment of the First Deal Experience, a podcast where we talk about investors and entrepreneurs and their first deal experience, and they share stories and details on how that happened. If you want to see the full segment, click on the link in the description below and get that podcast link so you can watch and listen to the whole thing.